What's up, dude? My name is Noah, also known as Terrestrial, and this is the start of a video series in which I will begin to explain how to start a song and finish it. That's my cat, Glitter. How to start a song and finish it for new and mildly experienced Ableton users. So let's get into the first couple of minutes of the video, the philosophy behind making music. So I take a highly iterative approach to writing music, designing my sounds, and obviously I will find sounds and techniques that I like and go back to them, but I lean heavily into experimentation. That is the basis of how I approach writing. The other things I would like to mention is taking advice and criticism. It's very important to learn how to do this, but also learn how to distinguish good advice and bad advice. I go by the rule of thumb: if I don't like the music that an artist makes, not just, if I don't like it, but like if it's not good quality, if it's not the quality that I would like to accomplish, I don't really need to listen to what they have to say, because they probably don't know what they're talking about in respects to me getting where I want to be. I've heard people say, oh, you don't need to sidechain a kick. You can just pan it in mono left and right. And it's just outlandish shit coming from people that do not make good music. So obviously I hate to say things like, oh, this person doesn't make good music, but if they don't know what they're doing, they don't know what they're doing. So the other thing is your approach to art and your feelings about it. You should really look at yourself, ask yourself why you're doing this. Josephus Fuchs wrote basically in his book Gratis ad Parnassum. He was the father of counterpoint music theory in the Baroque era. Basically, if you go at music, you have to understand that it is a lifelong practice, something that you will be doing for ages and ages, and that you should do it for the love of the music, not for money or fame. That there's other things you can do for that money and fame, because while there is fame and money to be had in music, it's more important that you do it out of your joy for it, because you're probably likely to get further that way anyways in terms of money and fame. So experiment with your sound, do what you like. If it's fun, you're doing something right. If you're enjoying it, if you like doing it, if you genuinely can imagine yourself spending 6 or 7 hours, make sure you eat, make sure you take bathroom breaks, make sure you drink lots of water, obviously. But if you can think of yourself doing it for 6 to 10 hours every day and not being miserable, then you might actually, enjoy it. Now, the other thing I'd like to add on top of what I just said is even if you don't feel like doing it, you should do it, because a lot of the times you'll walk away from it feeling satisfied. Spend 10-15 minutes, just write yourself some music, and that 10-minute session may turn into an hour or two. And then when you feel ready to sit down for an hour most days, that hour may turn into 3 to 4 hours. One other thing is don't be discouraged by the scene. A lot of people say this in every music genre. The scene is what's getting me out of it. Yeah, there are bad people everywhere, though. Especially in music, where the culture around music is heavily influenced by drug use and things like that. I say, stay as sober as you can. I think that healthy decision making, testing your drugs, being in a safe environment if you insist on doing it is important. But I would just say don't do those things, because that's how you get in toxic situations. That's how you find yourself hating something you once loved, and before you know it, you look back, and the last 2 to 5 or 10 years of your life spent producing music, trying to make a name for yourself, feels like it's gone down the hole because you associated with the wrong crowd. Okay, so on from that, let's open Ableton. Assuming you've never used Ableton before, the first time you open it, I'll switch the theme here to the default. I have my own. I have a couple of my own. The default will look gray. You can go and find themes. It's not as, fantastic as FL Studio. You can't really do as much, but I like this. I have a night mode, but that's not what this video is about. I find it easier to look at, so if it's hard to look at, do what you need to do, get comfortable, make sure you can focus, etc., etc. The first time you open Ableton, you're going to see probably 2 channels, a MIDI, and an audio channel. So if you don't know what these are, MIDI is just a form of data that when input into an engine, such as a synth or an instrument engine, whatever, I mean, they're all synthesizers on the computer. But when you play a note on your keyboard or your MIDI keyboard, it'll play a note in the computer. So that's what MIDI is. And you can actually draw in those notes. I'll explain how to do what I just did in a second here. So you can explain how to, you can draw those notes in right here. And when you press play, whatever, the engine will play those notes like that. So you can do either or. You can actually use a MIDI keyboard to record these notes. So anyways, the first things first, I have all my channels set up a specific way, but I started from ground zero here to kind of show you what I do. Put an EQ8 type here, press Control F if you don't see it. If you don't see the browser, you can drag from the left, or you can press Control F. EQ8 is a good stock Ableton plugin, or device as it's called in Ableton. And go onto your audio channel and go onto your MIDI channel. And there's a reason I'm doing this, but basically you want to have an EQ as the last thing in your channel. Right click it, save, I can't see it, hold on. Oh yeah, save as default audio track, boom. So that, boom, every time you add an audio track, see I click that new one, the EQ8's already on there. So you're gonna wanna have at least one EQ at the end of your chain. The other thing I do is add a limiter like this, because whatever I do to this sound, I use a method called clip to zero. I'll explain that in a minute, or maybe in another episode. But I'll add the limiter there. I don't typically use stock limiter. I use Pro L, but you might not have that, so yeah, save it as default audio track. You can just do both of these at the same time and then save it as default. It's not really, you don't have to do that ordered, but regardless. So to add a new audio track, press Control T, right? And you're gonna wanna have, multiple of each for good reason. To add a new MIDI track, press Control Shift T, right? To add return tracks, I use those a lot for reverbs. You're gonna want to do this. I'll explain why in a second. You can also right click to add these. Control Alt T adds a new, I guess, return. Okay, yeah, they're not showing because I accidentally zoomed it up. But basically, wait, where did those go? All right, Control Alt T. All right, so I've never accidentally done that before, but I went to press Control Alt T and accidentally pressed Control Alt R. If that happens to you, it shows the return tracks. You're gonna want to know that because return tracks are very important for a clean mix. Okay, so first things first, go ahead and make 4 or 5 audio tracks by pressing Control T. Hold Shift, highlight them all, and press Control G to put them in a group. Bada bing, bada boom. Now, this is the way I've been doing things. So, Control R to begin renaming the group, and name it drums. And for the sake of cleanliness, I like to choose one color. Red is nice for drums, I think, because, you know, whatever. You can recolor them. You right click to recolor, and then click assign track color to grouped tracks and clips. So this will recolor all the clips as well. Now we're gonna make, from the beginning, we're gonna start a drum beat. So let's just go through this real quick. I'm gonna add a kick. I recommend downloading like tons of samples because you can type, you know, whatever you're looking for and just find all sorts of things. As you can see here, I have a bunch of ones from Mr. Bill. If you subscribe to his website once, you can download all the stuff. Helps him out. He's an excellent artist. He's amazing at making tutorials and courses. He has courses. That's how I learned a lot of stuff when I first started out. So that's crazy sounding. I do not want that. Get a nice little thud. I like to use this one. Nice little soft thud. So a lot of times when you put it in here, if you have effects on the master, it'll sound a little different, but you know. So when you drag it onto the arrangement. So I'll just cover this really quickly. The anatomy of a drum. So you have, if you deactivate all this, which you can do by, alright, boom, Control E. So if I highlight a section and press Control E, it splits it, right? Okay, and then press 0, click on one and press 0 to deactivate it. So you'll have the transient, which is the first initial click of a drum. This one doesn't have much of a pronounced transient. There it is, right? Little click, all right? And then you have the body, which sounds like, you know, the meat of the drum. Well, there's the click. All right, maybe it's the click because of the sample. Yeah, it is. Okay, yeah, so it's the meat. It's all the sub, you know, frequency, and then the tail, right? The tail is the last portion. The tail is a little bit more pronounced on other drums like snares and hats, but it's just on this one, it's literally just that sub frequency kind of dying out. So grab your preferred kick sample and maybe a snare. I like to start with the drum beat when I make a song. I'm going to use a snare from my own personal kit that I've been making. Let's go in snares. I have this Tundra Chop. I like it. And also this little kit will be on for free or for sale at some point. I'm not sure when, but I'm going to make a drum kit and a sample pack, and it's going to sound great. So let's go boom. Boom. I'm going to change the theme because I can't see the bars here. So there we go. Nice. So I just want to make sure I can see the bars, like 1 bar, 2 bar, 3 bar, 4 bar. You can also see it at the top there. So I'm starting kind of in the middle of the arrangement. You don't have to do it this way, but it makes things easier to move around, add things in there, etc. Just, you know, I'm not starting at the very beginning. I know you would think, oh yeah, let's start here, you know, but it's a little easier. It seems unintuitive, but it's easier to do it this way, trust me, so that I can add things before it or after it, yada yada yada. So let's add some drums in. Boom, boom. I'm gonna go for boom, boom. Alright, so that's good. Nice little simple fucking pattern here. And now I'm going to highlight the area of these drums and press Control L to make it loop. So as I play, if I go here, it's going to loop back to the start. There you go. So that's very important when you're sitting around screwing with a section. It helps, you know, for a lot of reasons. So now for a little hat pattern, I'm going to press Control Shift T, add a MIDI clip in here, and I'm just going to name this Hat 1 and add drum rack. So if you type something in the browser like this and it shows no results, it's because you're in a subfolder. So I type drum rack in the browser, press Control F, bada bing, bada boom, and it's there. So hold on, and it's right there, and just drag it in to your Hat 1, and I'm gonna go back here and go into my Ancient Rumbles pack that I'm working on, and I got cymbals in here. I accidentally dragged that in there. Let's not put that there. All right, I'll just mess with that later. I'm just gonna put them all in. So hold Shift, click one, hold Shift, click the bottom, boom, drag them all into drum rack. Easy. Now to make a MIDI clip, hold Control Shift and press M, and it puts it in the arrangement. And now you can see, if you double click that MIDI clip, you can see a piano roll where you have all the hats you put into your drum rack. So I'm going to go with, I like this one. Now I'm doing it the hard way for a second, and I filled out half of this with just a simple little hat pattern, right? So what you can do is you can click here, like around here, and just highlight, and you'll see if you highlighted the right section, because you'll see a blue bar at the top. So if I just do like that, it's not going to work because I'm starting here, and if I, you know, try and copy it from there, it's going to like paste it right there. So you're going to want to highlight like this. It doesn't necessarily matter. If you want to do specific notes, highlight those specific notes, but if you just want to highlight the whole section, which is what I'm doing, boom, it highlights everything. Press Control D to duplicate. Control duplicate. All right, awesome. So now this is filled out, and I'm going to go in here and edit this a little bit. You have your fade out knob. I'm going to fade out the length of this hat. I clicked the wrong one here, I think. Yeah, so okay, make sure you go to the right one. You can see which one's playing with a little easy, right? Fade out. All right, now the nice thing about using drum rack is that I can go ahead and add effects on each of these drums. So I'm going to use OTT from Xfer. Put that in there. I like to OTT like pretty much everything. Don't ask me why. I just think it sounds nice most of the time because it just blows shit out, and I go for a really compressed sound in my music. So add a little gain here and just kind of brings out all the subtle things that were quiet before, makes them loud, like everything kind of like the same volume. And I'll drag down the wetness knob, the depth of it, basically to like 30 or 20% for most of the sounds that I use. And I don't even adjust any of this. You can, but yeah, look this plugin up. It's free. If you don't know what it is, it's nice. I love it. It's good to use on pretty much everything. And the cool thing about Ableton, right, is in drum rack you can see if I click the wrench icon, by the way, that shows the plugin. But if I click another drum, that's not there anymore, right? So that's, I think I've covered by now most of the basic functionality of Ableton. Yeah, if I do something, feel free to ask me in the comments if you don't know how I did it. But I'm just gonna kind of move forward from here to kind of get things done so this isn't 2 hours long, because we're at 20 minutes already. So I'm going to then control click and drag that here to copy it. Get rid of the fade out on this new one and turn that one to gate mode. And then right click, copy value to siblings. It's going to copy gate mode to all the other ones. And what gate mode does is it basically stops it from playing when the MIDI note's not being pressed. So there's no release on the sound, basically. It just cuts off immediately. If you have fade enabled on a drum, gate does not work because it kind of overrides gate because it's prioritizing that fade sound. So that becomes the release. And you can see how long the sound is right here. So this is 100 milliseconds. But boom, 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 boom. And I'm going to add another one. So I have cold scoop hat here. So let's just press Control 1 to make the grid smaller like this. You can add smaller notes, and then, or if you don't feel like doing that, you can alternatively just like do it. But I like to make sure things are kind of in time, and then I'll like swing them a little bit later. So I don't like the sound of that. So let's get rid of a couple. So I'm adding a couple more sounds in here. That's super fucking loud. Alright, and I'll just copy paste that section like this. Alright. Turn that down. Alright, so delete this whole thing and just copy paste that. Unnecessary to do it this way, but I like to be sure. It's a little too busy for me, so I'm going to delete like some of these. Get rid of that. And I like to add a little bit of variation here and there, so. Alright, pretty simple. Let's copy and paste that to the other side and then like, I don't know, make some variations here. Actually, I'll do that on the first pattern. I'll highlight all this, and then that way I can see each specific note and just like turn down the velocity. What this is right here is the velocity. If you don't know what that is, that's just the volume of the sound of the MIDI note. Boom, turn that down. Click it. I'm going to turn down like every other one, and then maybe sometimes just do 2 the same volume in a row. Just gives it a nice like organic feel for the, like it sounds a little more natural, because if it's just like that doesn't sound as good as it, you know, for hats. It sounds like a machine gun if you don't do anything. So. Alright, so now that's a little hat pattern in there. And you can always go in and edit this later, so don't worry about making it sound like a full, perfect, fucking, complete song when you, like, throw down 3 sounds, you know? So now I'm going to add in, what I like to do is I have some pots and pans samples, and I'll make this a different color, and as I go, I'll just kind of do this from here. Make the hats like light blue, assign track color to clips, right click, assign track color to clips. Let's make this also like blue but darker. So now if I like zoom out, I can kind of see where everything is, and I know my hats are like damn near white, so they'll be there. If I see that, I'm like, okay, that's the hats are in this section. I think I'm gonna yada yada. It's good to make things distinguishable. Just remember, and I kind of stick with the same colors for most of my tracks. I always have the kick like red and the snares like blue or something. Yeah, so there's this free pack right here called Noise Invasion Kitchen Drums. Pretty nice. I like these, like fucking this. I think they sound really like primal, even though it's just a cup. So now I'll show you why I use return tracks. So a send, also called a return, is when you send the signal to an external channel. So like I'm sending the signal from glass 31 into an external channel, right? And I'm gonna add, let's do hybrid reverb to convolution reverb, put that on return A, right? And I'll name this drum verb, right? And what I like to do with drum reverb is I'll add a utility. Utility just gives you basic controls and functions. I'll take the width down so that, and I don't do this for all the drums, but it's just in general, because if the drums are clouding up the same reverb like space in the stereo field, and they're playing a lot as your instruments, it doesn't give your instruments as much like room to breathe in the spectral field. So let's go ahead and dial in what we want for this reverb. I like to use real places, and there's a couple of, so let's do Fox Caves. I like Fox Caves, it sounds nice. So now you go here, and to send the signal of this drum to this drum verb bus, you have underneath the main volume knob right here for the channel, you have a couple more volume knobs, and this is sending how much you're sending that signal to the return channel. So boom, and you can hear now it has reverb. So if I were to put this, also if you're using a send, it needs to be 100%, because you want the signal to be fully processed in the send. What this is doing is you are sending this signal to the send, obviously, and it is playing both to the master, which is what plays into your ears, right? And it's also playing into the send channel, which then also sends to the master. And this gives you a clean signal that is playing the drum and the reverb. And that's why the reverb is 100%, right? So it's a little bit different than if you were to just like say put the reverb here and put it at 50%, because it's going to take literally half of the signal, like I think it's logarithmically or something, I'm not sure, and apply the reverb effect to it, and it kind of takes away, diminishes the sound of the drum itself. So I'll show you. Right, you're losing a bit of the punchiness, whereas if I just do this, you can't really tell so much, but it adds up. If you have like all your sounds, all your like sounds on like a similar reverb, you can to taste use, select reverb sounds for different instruments, but I recommend using sends because it's easier to keep it from muddying the fuck up out of your mix. So I'll typically EQ my reverbs to have a cut just below, like right above and below 100 hertz, or maybe about 300. You don't really need much like low middle end on a reverb. It can sound nice. If you like the way it sounds, go for it. But the human ear hears mid-frequency, mid-range frequency more easily than low-end and high-end. So a lot of mid-range or low mid-range in your song is going to make it sound muddy. So, and then obviously certain sounds need to have mid-range so that they don't sound scooped and like thin. Especially lead sounds, you want it to have a little bit of mid-range. So I'll show you what I do for most of my other sounds. But we've got our send, and I'm going to lay out like a little like primal sounding beat here. Let's get the kitchen utensils pack up. Go use this one. Sounds nice, and you can take down the send amount if it seems to be doing too much, which I think this one kind of is. Let's add another one in here. I also like the frying pans. So I'm going to go ahead and change the pitch of this just for an example. So you can double click any like clip you have. Let's say I don't see it, no clip selected. Select it. You don't actually need to double click, but right here is a pitch knob. You can change, and there's other functions in here in the warp mode. If you turn warp on, you can change it to texture, etc., etc., but we're not doing that right now, so don't even worry about it. One thing I forgot to do is set a key for this track. So I'm going to, I like writing in Dorian, so let's do Dorian. I'm going to do F Dorian. Why not? Sounds nice. Dorian is really nice. I'm not going to explain the music theory of it, but it is a really nice key. I like it. It's like kind of like hopeful sad. It's chill. It's good for like sublime, like ethereal melodies and stuff. It's really good. And I'm going to pan this to the left. Pan this to the right. Let's put a little bit of, I'm also going to make a section called Foley. Foley is just like organic, kind of real sounding sounds. And I'm going to drag this ingredient sound up there to the Foley channel, or the Foley group. Assign track, and I like to do this. It's really nice. A little swoop right before my snares, and turn that down a little bit. Alright, so now that I've put it on two of them, I'll just highlight that, Control D. I'm going to go back into this reverb and change the decay down to like maybe 1.5 seconds. Sounds pretty nice. I'll change it to Prism. Sounds pretty nice. do another casserole dish here. I'm gonna add another channel here for this. Okay, I'm gonna drag this over a little bit. Bada boom, bada bang. All right, copy that and then add a variation, maybe grab one of them, turn it down a couple, you know, maybe like 5 steps. So sounds pretty nice. All right, so this kick's not hitting as hard as I want it to just yet. And that'll get sorted out once we have an instrument. So the easiest instrument to add is, again, Control-Shift-T to add a MIDI. We already had one, so I didn't need to do that. Start a new group here. And I'm going to name this whole group Sidechain. This is a little technique I learned from Mr. Bill. He's actually, I can't see any reason not to do this. Because you're going to want a sidechain. Now, what a sidechain is when you, so to understand sidechain, you first need to understand chains. A signal chain is basically when this kick plays, it's not just playing straight to main. It's playing through all the plugins on the channel, right? And then that goes to wherever, you know, it's telling it to go to. So it's telling, this is telling it to go to drums, and then drums is going to, as you can see, main, right? Main is what plays in your headphones, right? When you have effects on main, again, there will be plugins, and whatever is the last plugin on the right is what is receiving the sound last and then playing into your headphones. So that is a chain. That's signal flow, like basic signal flow, right? The signal is going here to main. Side chain is when you have another thing on the side that is reacting to a chain, right? So a chain of events. This is going to then be side chain reacting. So I'll use compressor. This is a very easy way to do it. I don't like to use this, but since it's free, you can also use Kickstart. That's good for a lot of reasons. Kickstart 2 by Nicky Romero. Anyways, what I'll do is, turn the ratio to infinite to 1, and just kind of knock it like all the way down, so that basically whenever the kick plays, it's going to cause the signal to, you know, go down to 0 on the instrument bus. I'll demonstrate this in a second. Click this little arrow on the side here, click external, so that it's using an external source for the compression, and the source of compression is going to be compressing everything in the sidechain bus to the kick. So set that to your kick, right? So that's the first thing. Next thing, you have your MIDI channel, add your sub in. So there's a few ways you can do this. I typically use operator, because I can, instead of just, sometimes if a sound has a nice clean sub, if it's not like distorted as fuck, or maybe if it is, depends on how I'm feeling, I will, you know, go ahead and use that bass. But typically I use a clean sub for all my sounds. So you have operator here, and the first thing you can do is make sure all the settings look like default. You don't have to use pitch envelope. You can if you want, but I kind of do. I'll have it go up. Make sure that the sustain is set to 0 so that when the note first plays, it goes up pitch a little bit real quick, like this. So if you don't have it on, press M to turn on the MIDI keyboard function for using your computer keyboard, and this should be lit up. And then arm that track for recording so that when you press buttons, it reacts. So, oops. Right, so you can hear that, choo, choo, right? If I go down a few octaves, press Z and X to go up and down octaves. And you can see at the bottom right here, it's, you know, whatever. So, and you can hear the, like the way it reacts to the pitch envelope. So, nice. So, I'm going to start with the root note. I like to highlight the scale of, F Dorian. Why is this not doing that? Let's see. Yeah, okay, I figured. I'm going to set all the clips to F Dorian. This is something that it does sometimes, but yeah. Now all the clips I make from here on should be, let's see, F Dorian. Right. Okay, cool. So I make a MIDI clip, and then I'm going to start on an F. F0, it's nice. Now, you hear the way it's like, I'll just keep playing it. It's reacting to the sidechain compression at when the kick plays. I can barely hear this kick, to be honest. So, I'm going to turn it up. The way I do this is really silly, goofy, immature. For kicks, I'll go take glue compressor. This is a very dirty way of doing things. I don't recommend you do it, but you can if you want. Turn on clipping, and then just make up gain the fuck out of it. That's nice and loud. Set the ceiling to like -1 decibel on your limiter. And the kick doesn't need, despite what you may think, the kick does not need to be extremely loud. Depending on what you're doing, it just really doesn't. It needs to be loud enough to hear. That's why I'm doing this, but it doesn't need to be the loudest thing in your song by any means. The sub doesn't need to be that loud either. All right, so next thing is go ahead and download Span. Pause the video, do what you need to do. Go download Span and put that on your master, on your main, right? When you're writing a song, you need to make sure that the sub is not like fucking leagues louder than everything else. So for you know, let's make a little Serum patch. We got about like 15 more minutes. Let's make a little Serum patch here and add like an instrument in here. So let's make a little melody in F Dorian. So I'll start to demonstrate this. I'm going to bring this up. I'm just dragging the envelope down the sustain so that it makes kind of like a pluck. I'm going to change this to a sine wave. Turn the level down here. FM from B. Make a nice little sound. If you right click here on semitones, you can do mode and change it to harmonics. That just, you know, it changes it to the, you know, the harmonic of that note. If you don't know what harmonics are, you can look it up. Maybe I'll make a video. But the harmonic series of a specific frequency is like So, for example, C is 440, 880 is the next harmonic in like the C series. So, because you double it, and every time you double it, it's another note. On a spectrograph, typically those notes will start to look closer and closer together. Do the harmonic series. So, add a compressor on here. Just do a very like dirty process. Or sorry, by the way, I explained harmonics wrong. Harmonics is not like just the same frequency of the note. It is a kind of like a pattern in which like a note will naturally produce a bunch of harmonics as it kind of like goes along the graph. So there's all sorts of fucking shit there that you can find out. I don't really have time to explain it all. It's hard to put it into like words in like a few seconds, but I'm gonna grab a tube distortion and throw reverb on here. Make this more wide. So that sounds nice. Next thing I'm going to do is go into the fine tuning and do mod source note on random discrete. This makes it so that every time it plays a note, it changes like that value randomly. The fine tuning of the note. The reason we're doing this is because you don't like if I play like over and over again. Let me boost the release, you can hear it. They start to phase stack and it sounds weird. Whereas if I have this fine tuning up maybe to like 15%, you can see it sounds a little more natural. Sounds like an organic analog synth almost, but not quite, but you know. Let's add a little portamento here, always portamento. Alright, so that's cool. And then I'm going to add in a little melody and just, so let's do like. Sounds pretty nice. So let's copy that. So that I'm hearing that side chain is like pulsing way too much. So let's reduce the release a little bit here. So also I wouldn't necessarily use compressor for kick. There's another way you can do this that sounds a lot better. let's just go ahead and manually draw in the side chain here. I don't typically do this. Like I said, I use Kickstart. It's a lot cleaner than what this is, but I'm not liking the way this sounds right now with this kick. It depends on which kick you're using and, you know, the context of the song. But basically, what you do is you go to the volume of the whole side chain and just draw in a fucking side chain curve like that, so that this will duck the volume. There you go. So that was a little too long, and I couldn't be bothered to sit here and screw around with it. So just, by the way, so this, I forgot to explain this. For automation, you want to draw automations, press A for automation, right? And I'm going to click my sidechain group, and I'm going to highlight. I'm going to go to the area that I want to automate. And for anything you want to automate damn near in Ableton, all you do is click the parameter you're attempting to automate. So I'll change it right for what I'm doing. If I click the dry wet knob of this compressor, right, now that shows up right here. You can see it says compressor dry wet. So I'm going to go back by clicking this. You can also go through the menu here. You can set it to show only automated parameters. I don't like to do that because I like to go through this menu sometimes. And go Control C, highlight that little automation, and just copy it everywhere you see your kick drum. Very nice, very easy, very clean. Now, the reason I also typically will use a send bus from my reverb is when you sidechain the whole instrument bus. So it's easier to do it in this way instead of putting a sidechain plugin on every single instrument and trying to figure out which ones you want. Just sidechain the whole thing, because it's only for like a split second that it's ducking everything in volume so the kick can cut through. When you do this, right, the aim is to duck the frequencies that are going to conflict with the kick and make it hard for the kick to be heard. When it's a lot of low mids and a kick has a lot of low mids, etc., like or a sub bass is definitely going to conflict with the kick because they're both low end. They're both, and when two low end frequencies match, they go boom. For some reason, it's very audible. It sounds disgusting. It causes a lot of summing issues that makes shit sound distorted and loud. So you don't want to just not sidechain. Like, it is something that is, like, as a rule of thumb, you probably should do it on every single song. Like, genuinely, if there's a sub bass and a kick in that song, yes, you should sidechain. Otherwise, the length of the sidechain, is completely up to taste. The shape of the sidechain curve is completely up to taste. But I just kind of don't really care that much about it. It just depends, really. It sounds nice to me, so I can actually make this a little bit shorter as well. Make the kick a little bit shorter, like just kind of phase out at the tail right here. Make that like super sharp, and then make the side chain about the same length as that. And then I'll just go through Control C, Control V, so I can just replace all those. Boom, boom, boom. And it's good to sort these out early on, these kinds of things you want early on, and just stand on that creative decision, so you don't have to go back and screw around with it again. So, oops, let's just delete all that. Control V, Control V, Control V. And all I'm doing is copying, pasting the sidechain curve for my kicks. Easy as. Alright, so I'm gonna go and turn off the reverb on this. I'm gonna just fully delete it and send it to my other reverb bus. And the nice thing is, because the sidechain is only reacting to this, it's not sidechaining the volume of the hats or anything else. It's not ducking the volume of any of that. It's just ducking the volume of everything in sidechain, and therefore it's also not ducking the reverb. And that is why you want your reverb to have a cut low. Obviously because it'll muddy it up, but also because it'll conflict with everything else, which is in essence the same thing as muddying, but two signals completely conflicting is not exactly the same thing. It's just a muddy mix. So let's go here. I'll even add an EQ8 straight to that. I'll change that to 4x, cut right here, and I'll duplicate that actually and do mid side on the mode, MS, change that to side, and then I'll have like a little bit less steep of a curve and just kind of like cut the mids a little bit here for the side range, because I think it sounds cleaner when there's not a whole lot of mid signal on the side. And fully send that to that bus. I'll make this a little bit longer, so I'll just change this to, oops, I'm in caps lock, long verb, and my drum verb, and then I'll make that like 2 seconds again, maybe like 4 seconds. So turn. So I'm gonna just add a trap hat in here. I don't like any of these hats. Go down here. That's pretty nice. So I'm gonna go back into this, drag this in there, and I have hat 1, rename it to trap hat, right, so I can find it easily. I don't think there's anything else named hat 1. Anyways, I will highlight all these notes, Control X, and then Control okay. Just drag them up. But yeah, you can Control X to cut, and then Control V to paste. So Control C, or just highlight everything and drag it up. And then I'm also going to copy this whole pattern over, overwrite that, and go into trap hat, fade out that. I'm going to fade in a little bit too. Make it a little bit more of a shaker. Sounds pretty good. And then let's go through and just for everything other than the kick and the sub bass, basically, add you a little cut. Like I'd usually do just below 100, depending on the sound. If you want to avoid clicking and shit like that, if it's like say a hat and the only thing that's playing is up here, like then you can just cut to up here. But like for pretty much everything, I'll just add this little cut. Let's go through, especially these little like Foley sounds, like you can kind of, maybe not that one, but a lot of times they'll just have, like you can see the sound doesn't change at all if I cut all the way up to here. That's an EQ cut. So but it's good to stop like muddy like infrasounds from muddying up your mix. So you can add an EQ here onto this group. It's nice you can also add effects onto groups instead of just adding each individual one. But let's play it. So yeah, you can see that there's a lot of sub bass frequency in here, essentially, and just go whoop, down. There, now it sounds good. And yeah, if you like this, give me a follow, and we'll see you at the next tutorial.